If your cash started going stale like bread on the counter, quietly losing a little freshness every day, how long would you leave it there? A week? A month? A decade? Be honest. If you wouldn't eat stale bread, why are you willing to hold stale money? That's not a trick question. It's the simplest way to see the game wealthy people are playing while the rest of the world works harder and ends up wondering why the numbers don't budge. Money does not sit still. If you don't give it a job, inflation will. Your job is to move from money owner to asset owner as fast as you reasonably can so your cash stops expiring and starts compounding. When I was a kid, I watched a person I loved do everything right. According to the old script, he worked long hours, picked up extra shifts, kept a second hustle to make ends meet, and every time a little extra came in, he stashed it some in a bank account that paid almost nothing, some in a literal shoebox. It felt safe, it felt responsible, it felt adult. But safety isn't just about where you put money, it's about what happens to it while it sits. Prices rose a little each year, groceries nudged up, rent never asked permission to climb, fuel didn't apologize, and slowly, quietly, that safe pile bought less of the life he imagined. He thought the stock market was risky. He didn't realize he was already taking the biggest risk available, letting time eat his purchasing power on purpose. That realization changed me, not into a gambler, into a builder. I decided early that my money would work a second job even when I was asleep. Not because I'm braver than most people, but because I'm terrified of the silent tax that visits everyone who leaves their cash in a corner. Inflation is not a monster under the bed, it's math. Over long stretches, it averages a few percent a year. Even when the headlines calm down, the baseline creep never fully stops. If your money's not growing faster than that number, your options are shrinking while you're drinking your morning coffee. That's the real risk we're rarely taught to see. So why invest? Because investing is how you turn "I worked for this money" into "this money also works for me." It's how you stop selling every hour you own and start letting a fraction of your hours echo in the background. And if that sounds like a fairy tale, hang on. I'm going to show you exactly how it looks in a life like yours, with numbers you can taste, strategies you can start today, and a routine that survives busy weeks, tired nights, and scary headlines. Let's start simple. A stock is a slice of a business. Buy one slice, and you become a shareholder. Shareholders make money in two main ways. One, the slice becomes more valuable over time as the business grows. Two, the business decides to share a portion of its profits with owners in the form of dividends cash payments you receive without selling your slice. That's it. No magic. Just a claim on real-world work, products, and profits. When your portfolio holds many such slices across different industries and countries, you own a little piece of the human project. People waking up, building things, solving problems, and charging for the value they create. Now plug compounding into that picture. Compounding is the part of the story that sounds boring until you see it working. Imagine your investments earn an average return some years up, some years down, but over long periods drifting upward. You reinvest those gains instead of spending them, so next year your gains are earning gains too, and the year after that, and the year after that. At first, the curve looks flat. Then it begins to bend. Then it feels like cheating, until you remember it's just patient arithmetic. The internet loves to call compounding the eighth wonder of the world. That's cute. It's really just what happens when you refuse to interrupt growth for long enough. Do you need a calculator to believe this? Fine. Let's play a quick, human-sized thought experiment. Suppose you commit to investing $250 a month, not theoretically automatically. You tell your bank to move it every month into a broad, low-cost index fund that owns hundreds of companies for you. You do this through an account designed to minimize taxes so the growth isn't shaved by the tax man each year. Some months, you'll hate it because a vacation whispers your name. Some months, you'll forget it's even happening. Over a decade, you'll feel proud. Over a couple of decades, you'll begin to gasp. Over 3 or 4, you'll have built a fortune that looks impossible to people who think investing is only for rich folks. The exact number will depend on returns, which no one controls. But the principle won't change. Time multiplied by consistency is stronger than almost any one-time act of financial heroism. So, when should you start? Now. The best time was when you got your first paycheck. The second best is this week. Starting earlier does not mean you need to start huge. It means you give math more birthdays. The longer your timeline, the more volatility turns from a villain into a friend. When you're young, a market dip means you're buying future growth at a discount. When you're older, a large stock-heavy portfolio might feel like a roller coaster you don't want to ride the week before you need the money. That's why the shape of your investments should change as your life changes. But the commitment to invest regularly, that part is timeless. Before you press buy, there are 2 guardrails that make every investor's life gentler. Kill high-interest debt and build a small emergency fund. High-interest debt credit cards, store lines, anything in the teens or 20s is like carrying a parasite inside your finances. It consumes the nutrition before your body can use it. Paying it off is the only guaranteed risk-free return you're going to get that looks heroic. If your card charges 20% a year and you eliminate that balance, you just earned 20% with certainty. No stock offers that. Not paying 20% is the most underrated investment on earth. The second guardrail is a cushioned 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in a boring, high-yield savings account you don't look at unless life throws a brick through your window. Not because cash grows, because cash protects. It keeps you from selling your investments at the worst possible moment to cover a flat tire or a medical bill. It lowers your heart rate when the market decides to have a tantrum. It turns emergencies into annoyances. Once you have a cushion and you're unshackled from high-interest debt, investing stops feeling like a dare and starts feeling like a routine. How much should I invest? As much as you can consistently without building resentment that makes you quit. I love simple rules that bend with your life. One such rule, call it 70-20-10, allocates roughly 70% of your after-tax income to living expenses, 20% to investments, and 10% to fun you actually feel. That's a starting point, not a commandment. For some seasons, 40% investing will be your norm. In others, 10% will be all you can push and still sleep. What matters is that investing is permanently on the menu, not an occasional special when everything else goes right. Let's translate investing into actual clicks and taps. You'll need a brokerage or investing app. You'll need the right type of account under that roof. The boring winners here are tax-advantaged accounts tools that let your money grow with fewer taxes nibbling along the way. Names vary by country, but the idea travels. In the United States, a workplace retirement plan such as a 401k or 403b reduces taxes today, and a Roth IRA allows tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals later, if you follow the rules. In the United Kingdom, a SIPP helps you invest pre-tax for retirement, and a stocks shares ISA shelters growth and dividends from tax entirely up to annual limits. In Canada, you'll hear TFSA and RRSP. Australia has superannuation. Wherever you live, there's almost certainly a wrapper designed to make long-term investing smarter. Use it. Open the account this week. Set a small automatic transfer. Increase it every time your income rises. Worried you don't have enough to start? Fractional shares exist now. You no longer need to save a whole share price to own a piece of a great business or a fund. You can begin with $5, $10, $25. Consistency matters far more than size at the beginning. The muscle you're training isn't buying big, it's buying always. Next scary question: how do I choose what to buy? Entire industries exist to make that question feel mysterious, so you'll outsource it and pay them to be wizards. The truth is simpler than you think. You can try to pick individual winners, analyzing financial statements, leadership moats, and price charts. Some people love that game. Some are good at it. Most are not, especially after fees and taxes. The alternative is what I call the cheat code for non-experts: index funds. Imagine a sports league with 500 teams. The best teams rise, the worst drop out, and the league constantly updates to reflect reality. Now imagine you could buy the whole league at once. You'd own the champions, the up-and-comers, and you'd quietly kick out the failures as the league rebalances. That's what an index fund does with businesses instead of teams. The SP 500, for example, is a list of roughly 500 of the largest companies in the U.S. You can buy one fund that owns a tiny slice of each, instantly diversified across industries. If a few stink, they barely matter. If a few dominate, they pull your results upward. There are similar funds for a total U.S. market, total world markets, developed markets, and emerging markets. You can build a complete portfolio with 2 or 3 funds and then do something radical. Leave it alone. Why do index funds win for most people? Costs and humility. Because they are passive. They simply track an index. They charge very low fees. That matters more than it seems. A fund that costs 1% a year may not sound expensive until you realize that 1% shaved off your returns every year for 30 years is a fortune that could have been yours. The second reason is that beating the market over long stretches is extraordinarily hard even for professionals. Many active managers underperform their benchmark after fees. Owning the market cheaply and letting capitalism and time do the work is a bet that has paid off for patient investors more often than not. Which index funds should you consider? Keep it clean. A broad U.S. index fund, like one that tracks the SP 500 or the total U.S. market, plus an international fund developed plus emerging markets, gives you exposure to most of the world's productive capacity. Some investors like to tilt a bit toward their home country. Others prefer a global cap-weighted approach that mirrors the size of markets around the world. You can add a small slice of emerging markets if you want more spice. The exact mix is less important than picking a reasonable one and sticking with it. If you want fewer moving parts still, one fund solutions exist: target date, or all-in-one global funds that automatically adjust over time and rebalance for you. Simplicity is not laziness in investing. It's a strategy. Is investing risky? Define risky. If by risk you mean the price might go down next week, then yes, stocks are risky. They breathe, they rise and fall in the short term because people's expectations change moment by moment. If by risk you mean I might never recover, the answer depends on your timeline, your diversification, and your behavior. A diversified stock portfolio held for decades has historically rewarded patience, not every year, not every 5-year stretch. Over 20-year rolling periods, broad markets have been relentlessly upward. Will the future rhyme? No one knows with certainty. But betting against human ingenuity over long stretches has been a losing strategy so far. The greater risk for most young people isn't volatility, it's failing to invest, then waking up 20 years from now with a pile of safe cash that quietly drowned. You can also shape how much price movement you experience by mixing in safer ingredients like bonds as you age. Bonds are loans to governments and corporations. They tend to be steadier, paying interest and fluctuating less. Younger investors often hold mostly stocks because they have time to recover from dips. As retirement nears, adding bonds can reduce the ride and protect the money you'll soon spend from a bad year arriving at the worst time. Though there are rules of thumb, your age in bonds, glide paths in target date funds, but these are starting points. Use a mix that lets you sleep while meeting your goals. When should you sell? The loud answer from social media is often as people chase the thrill of timing tops and bottoms. The boring answer that actually builds wealth is rarely. In your 20s and 30s, 3 reasons make sense. 1, a genuine emergency and no other options. Ideally, your emergency fund prevents this. 2, the facts changed and your thesis broke. If you own an individual company and the reasons you bought it vanish, leadership wrecked, numbers falsified, competitive moat shattered, exiting can be wise. 3, you reached a specific goal with a portion of your investments and selling serves a life move you consciously chose. Even then, think through taxes and consider whether gradually shifting is smarter than one big sale. What's not a reason? Headlines. Doom scrollers don't retire earlier. People who keep buying good assets through noise do. Let's stop being theoretical and build an investing routine that survives real life. I prefer a 6-minute ritual on payday that runs the whole show without drama. Step 1. Automatic transfers fire into the right accounts in the right order emergency fund until it's full. High-interest debt payment with extra tax-advantaged investment accounts for long-term growth, small slice for learning and building income, and a pre-decided amount for guilt-free fun. Step 2. Investments buy themselves. You set a weekly or monthly dollar-cost averaging schedule into your chosen index funds. No guessing days, no reading tea leaves. Step 3. You don't check daily. You let the machine hum, you live your life, and once a month you run a money reset. In under an hour, prune one cost, celebrate one win, review contributions, and move on. But what about picking individual stocks? Isn't that where the big wins are? Sometimes, yes. If you want to learn, allocate a small sandbox portion of your portfolio to companies you research deeply. Read their reports. Understand what drives revenue, margins, and growth. Watch how they treat shareholders. Pay attention to valuation. What you pay matters. Hold for years if your thesis remains intact. The sandbox keeps your curiosity fed, while your core wealth compounds quietly in index funds. The moment your sandbox becomes your whole beach, your risk explodes. Don't fire your money engine just because you got excited. And yes, a quick word about crypto. It's become a mainstream topic whether we like it or not. If you're curious, treat it like venture capital in your own life, a tiny slice you can afford to see swing wildly. Learn custody before coins. If you don't understand how to secure what you buy, you don't own it. An exchange does. If you decide to allocate, keep it under a small single-digit percentage of your investments and never let headlines talk you into turning your entire plan into a casino. Your future doesn't need fireworks. It needs compounding. You may be thinking, this all sounds reasonable, but I have kids. I live in an expensive city. I started late. I made mistakes. Is it too late for me? No. It's too late to start yesterday. It's not too late to start now. Your path might require more intensity, more creativity, and a little more time. But the levers are the same. Reduce what you can without hating your life. Increase income where you can by practicing valuable skills. Capture tax advantages relentlessly, automate good behavior, and avoid interrupting compounding. Shame will not help you. Systems will. If you're under 18, listen closely. Ask an adult you trust to open a custodial account where they can invest for your benefit. A tiny amount invested in your teens has decades to compound. You don't need to become a stock expert. You need to become the kind of person who moves $10 from a new hoodie to an index fund without crying about it. The hoodie wears out. Your shares don't. If you're a parent, this is a gift you can give your kid that beats toys. Imagine your child turning 25 with a portfolio that's been quietly fed since they were 12. That's not rich kid stuff. That's routine kid stuff done right. Let's add in 3 scripts you can use when the world tests you. Script 1 for fear. This week is not my horizon. When prices drop, you remind yourself out loud that you're buying a lifetime of earnings, not a headline. You keep your automatic buys running. You go for a walk. Script 2 for FOMO. I invest like a scientist, not like a fan. When a friend posts a win, you congratulate them and then return to your plan. You don't chase their trade with your rent money. You let your sandbox be small and your core be boring. Script 3 for comfort. My future self signs my checks. When you want to skip this month's investment for a shiny thing, you move a token amount into your portfolio anyway, a $5 minimum, to keep the streak alive. You can add more next month. Breaking the habit is the real risk. I promised you this would be a professor's lecture designed to hold your attention. So let's turn this into a mini class with assignments you'll actually do. Right now, not later. Assignment 1, write your emergency fund number on paper 3 months of your baseline expenses and open a separate high-yield account named Calm. Set a recurring transfer that you can keep, even if it's tiny. That name matters. You are buying Calm, not cash. Assignment 2, list your debts with balances and interest rates. Circle anything over 10%. That's your parasite. Decide on Avalanche or Snowball. Set your first extra payment on autopilot. Assignment 3, open one tax-advantaged account you qualify for. If your employer matches a retirement contribution, contribute enough to grab all of it. That match is free money. If you qualify for a Roth-style account, open it and fund it automatically, even if the amount is laughable. Laughing now beats crying later. Assignment 4, Pick your core index funds. Keep it to 1, 2, or 3. Set weekly or monthly buys. Turn on dividend reinvestment. Name your portfolio something that makes you smile so you don't avoid checking it out of dread. Assignment 5. Choose your sandbox size if you want one. Cap it. Write the cap down. When it's full, you don't add more until your overall portfolio grows. Curiosity is good. Boundaries are better. Assignment 6. Pick one small habit to free cash and one small skill to raise cash. Cancel a subscription you forgot you had and redirect that exact amount into your investments. Spend 20 minutes a day for the next 30 days practicing a skill that the market rewards: writing copy, video editing, basic data analysis, outreach, or no-code automation. 2 tiny moves. Do them quietly. Brag about them to no one. Let the results speak next year. While we're here, let's clean up 2 myths that keep people poor. Myth 1. I'll start when I have more money. You won't. Money doesn't create discipline. Discipline creates money. Starting with $10 builds a reflex that a $10,000 raise can't buy for you. Myth 2. I missed the best years. The best years are the ones you use. People invest at market peaks and do well if they keep going. People invest in gloomy times and do well if they keep going. The common thread is not the start date, it's the fact that they did not stop. What happens if the market crashes right after you start? You'll feel brilliant or you'll feel silly depending on the direction. Neither feeling matters. Your auto buys mean you'll acquire more shares for the same dollars when prices are down. That is how compounding sneaks extra fuel into your engine without asking you to be brave. You don't have to time the bottom. You simply have to refuse to stop digging just because the weather changed. What about taxes outside those special accounts? Keep it simple. Prefer funds that minimize taxable distributions. Hold for longer than a year when possible to get better tax treatment in many places. Don't churn. Every time you sell, you may owe. An index fund core is naturally tax efficient because it trades less inside the fund and because your buying and holding introduces fewer taxable events. That's not a reason to never sell. It's a reason to think twice and let laziness work for you. We should also talk about rebalancing occasionally, nudging your portfolio back to your intended mix when one part runs ahead of the others. You can do this once or twice a year in 5 minutes. Instead of selling the winner, you can often rebalance with new money. Add a bit more to what's lagging until the percentages are back where you want them. This keeps risk aligned with your plan without turning investing into a part-time job. If you want a narrative to bring all of this together, keep this one. You're on a long hike. Cash in a shoebox is like carrying all your water in your arms because buckets feel safer than a hose. Investing wisely, patiently, is building a pipe that fills your canteen while you walk. At first, it's a trickle, then a stream. Then you barely remember life before the hose. You still have to watch your step. You still have to patch leaks, debt, carry a first aid kit, emergency fund, and check your MAP, asset allocation. But you're no longer thirsty. And when you pass people still scooping with their hands, you don't gloat. You offer them a look at your pipe and tell them it wasn't magic. It was a decision followed by a routine. Let's end where we began, with a question you can't ignore. If your money is going stale on the counter, what is the smallest fresh action you will take tonight? Will you open the right account and move $20? Will you write your emergency number and name your calm account? Will you list your debts and circle the parasite? Will you schedule your first auto buy into an index fund? Will you cancel one subscription and redirect it? Will you take a deep breath, accept that the perfect time doesn't exist, and choose the next best minute? You are not worse than millionaires. They just started treating money like a worker a little earlier. They built simple automations and let time punch the clock. You can do that. You can be the person who looks back 5 years from now at a graph that bends not because you got lucky, but because you refused to stay still. Your kids' future or current will not care that you timed the market. They will care that you built a life where choices weren't always hostage to the next paycheck. Invest because your future is expensive and your present is capable. Invest because inflation is not waiting for you to feel ready. Invest because compounding is kinder than any boss you'll ever have. Invest because a quiet, boring routine beats loud, exciting regret. And invest because when someone asks you one day, "How did you make it look so easy?" you'll smile and tell them the truth. You didn't make it easy. You made it automatic. You started while the money was still small. You kept going while no one clapped. And you let time do what it always does for people who refuse to quit.